So today I have the honor of chatting with Laurel Hodge. Laurel is currently global head of marketing for Confluence Cloud. Confluence is one of the most widely used collaboration products in the world. It's the second highest revenue product for the parent company, Atlassian. And you've probably heard of Atlassian. They're the maker of products like Jira and Trello, in addition to Confluence, which are also two of the most popular collaboration products in the world. They have over 250,000 customers. They currently have 7,000 employees. They have plans to grow a ton, and they're consistently named one of the best places to work. And before leading a global team at Atlassian, Laurel led creative strategy at Imager, and yes, that is how you pronounce it. That's where I got to work with Laurel. She and I kind of co-founded the advertising business at Imager. That's how they make money. And so I got to work really closely with her there. She's been recognized as one of the world's most influential marketers. She's built an amazing team. She built an amazing team at Imager. She's built an amazing team at Atlassian. She's hired and interviewed a lot of people over the course of her career. And so she's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to how candidates handle the interview process and the hiring process. And so today we want to talk about how to be a better interview candidate from the perspective of a hiring manager. What to do, what not to do, and not just the places like Imager or Atlassian, but really anywhere. And whether you're currently interviewing or whether you plan to be interviewing in the next few weeks or months or years, how can you be the best possible job candidate? That's what we're going to talk about today. So Laurel, once again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Steve. What a great introduction. I think
It's
I think I was one of the first people who you hired at Imager. So that was quite the honor to build that with you. Really good times.
We had a ton of fun. That was, and it's so good to see you again. So, Laurel, maybe we can start off very high level. What does a global head of marketing at Confluence actually do?
All right. I love the framing of what do I actually do. So what I actually do is I market to our internal audiences. I manage up. I help share the team's wins and the impact of what the team is having on the business with the entire company. I also help shape the external expression of how Confluence shows up in the world. So I take a look at our voice, our brand strategy, the tone, really close to the creative, everything that goes out. And I also work really closely with the product team in order to help make sure we're building the best product possible for our customers, and we're delivering on the promise that we're making out there in the market, that Confluence is indeed one of the best content collaboration tools in the world. So it's a good balance of internal marketing and external marketing as well.
Yeah, what struck me, Laurel, is you started with, and I'm assuming you did this because it's probably the most important piece of it. A lot of what you're marketing is the work of your team to internal audiences, right? You're helping everybody else in the company, a 7,000 person company, know what the people on your team are actually doing.
Correct.
Which is so important and such a great leadership principle.
Right.
Let's talk about teams. So today, tell me about the team that you manage today. I'd love to hear a little bit about how big that team is and maybe what kind of roles are on that team.
Yeah, so I've got about 12 marketers on my team, and the roles span from brand marketing, content marketing, social media marketing to product marketing. And so I've got to see and oversee a really good span of all the different tools that marketers can have in their toolkit and all the different backgrounds of different marketers.
Got it. And so a team of 12, I'm assuming that for each of those individuals that are on your team, you have probably interviewed many more, right?
Yeah.
would you say, is there a general ratio? Like for every hire, you probably interviewed, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe 10 people for each?
Wow. Yeah. For that's a good question. I think for every hire, I've probably interviewed 7, I would say.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, I another question I saw is, how many people do you think you've interviewed in the course of your career? And I'm just like, it's got to be in the hundreds, maybe 1,000, easy. Over
Yeah.
15 years in, 5 different roles. Definitely have been in a lot of interviews for a lot of different candidates, and not just for marketers either. We get pulled in to interview product people, designers, uh, marketing analytics, at Imager, sales, whole different beast, whole different
Mm.
personality type.
That's right. Yeah. So that's a good point, right? So it's not just you've interviewed not just the people that you've hired or for the positions that you're hiring for,
Yeah.
but you're often part of the interview panels
Yeah.
for other hires that are being made across the company on different teams, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. So maybe we can talk about like what the hiring process at Atlassian. Maybe we can talk about that. Let's say somebody submits an application. They see a posting on the career site. They submit their application. What typically happens next?
Yeah, definitely. All right. So let me actually start with the 2 people who I work with closely. So I work really closely with a recruiter and a sourcer. And so, what the recruiter and the sourcer will typically do at the very beginning of the process is that they'll really clarify the type of candidate that I'm looking for, and then also the different job titles that I could possibly be looking for. So, right now, for example, I'm hiring for a product marketing manager with an emphasis in content. And so, this product marketing manager might have different titles at different companies. And so, I might say, I want you to look for a content strategist. I want you to look for a product marketer with these particular keywords. And so keywords in the profile are extremely important. Just having a title in there isn't necessarily going to tell me that you've done the work that I need you to do. So we look at titles, we look at keywords, then we also look at companies that are doing content marketing or product marketing really well. And I might say, hey, I want you to go look at this company, and this company, because I know that the content that they're producing is great. So in the beginning, we kind of align on like, okay, what's like the profile? And then the recruiter will probably, or the sourcer will send me a couple of sample profiles. They'll say, look at this person, this person, this person. Are they a yes or are they a no? And they might not necessarily even be in our pipeline yet. It's just more of profiles that they found on LinkedIn that they think are really good examples of what a good product marketer profile looks like. And I say like, yes or no, like doesn't look like they have this experience, or looks like maybe they're more focused on this area of product marketing instead of this area. So then there's 2 different ways that we source candidates. One, of course, is the sourcer will go out there and try to find candidates. They're looking at people who have the keywords and have the experience that I'm looking for. Then the other way that we find candidates, obviously, is a candidate will come in and they will apply for a job. So obviously, the best way to ever get your resume seen at any company possible is to get referred, because we have internal systems that show that this is a referral candidate, and those resumes go to the very top of our inbox, and we always look at those resumes first. And it can also be a case where maybe the resume isn't a perfect fit for this job, but this person internally is really great and they vouch for this person. You're like, it's worth a conversation, versus someone who wasn't referred isn't going to get that, I guess, leap of faith that we're giving internal referrals. So another piece there is that if you can find anybody at a company to refer you, even if it's like someone who you just met once or a friend of a friend, do that extra legwork, make those connections in the very beginning to be one of the referred resumes. So after, we jump through all those hurdles. Let's say that we've got, 3 resumes of candidates that are looking pretty strong. The very first step is the recruiter will reach out to those candidates, and the recruiter has spoken with me and they've asked me, what am I screening for? What am I looking for? So for this PMM with an emphasis in content, I'll be telling them, hey, like I need somebody who has really strong product marketing chops and it wants to be a partner to managers, but also has an emphasis in creating really breakthrough content and knows how to think about messaging, knows how to think about positioning, maybe has a copywriting background, somebody who's passionate about the content side of product marketing and maybe has some desire to move into different areas of product marketing, but I'm looking for that passion. I'm looking for that expertise. So they have a preset, a couple of questions that I've seeded them with. And then they also know me and they know my personality and they know what I'm looking for in the soft skills department as well. I'm looking for people who I have a connection with, people who I can work well with. I think that another thing is essentially, this might not be true at all companies, but at least for me, once you've made it in the door and we're talking about your experience, it's probably, it might not necessarily be your experience that's going to disqualify you as a candidate for me. I'm looking for somebody who I connect with and I work well with. And that comes down a lot to communication style. That comes down to openness and transparency, values that I hold really high. I'm not somebody who hides a lot of stuff from my team, from my boss, from my company. I'm extremely transparent. And so if I'm going into an interview with a candidate, the first 5 minutes, I just chat. I ask them about their day, I ask them about their week, their weekend. And sometimes people freeze up in that situation because they're expecting to come in and be like, let me talk through my resume and let me kind of go into this. I'm trying to see if I have a rapport with somebody because that actually means that they're going to be more successful. I'm going to be more successful if we understand the way that we both communicate with each other. And so those first 5 minutes are actually really important and can be the hardest for someone to do when someone comes in and is just like, hey, how are you? Like, what's going on in your life? Yeah, I've, heat wave here in Berkeley and I have a, what is this called? This is an air filter instead of a fan that's trying to keep me cool, So I would say maybe for candidates doing a little bit of extra work, looking at somebody's profile, trying to see what they're into. I think for a while I had like meditation on my profile. You don't have to be like, yeah, meditation. Wow, both of us have that, but just kind of be prepared to try to build some rapport in the beginning of the conversation versus just going directly into receptive mode, which is like, I'm waiting for the question that they're going to ask me, and then I'm going to fire back the response.
It sounds like you touched on some really important concepts there. So up top, you talked about these other roles that you work with. So a sourcer, someone who is going out and looking for the types of candidates, and together you're collaborating to align on, okay, what is the right person for the role that we need to hire for, right? What are the right keywords? Do they have the right keywords in their LinkedIn profile? Can I discern from their profile what work they actually did? And that's how you start to calibrate on, yes, find more people who have that type of experience and keywords in their profile. There's also a recruiter who is probably the first person who talks to somebody who is applying, or that initial conversation. You also mentioned the importance of referrals. So yeah, for every application, for every job opening, you're probably getting tons and tons and tons of applications. And those who have some kind of referral surface to the top. So if you know somebody at a company, see if they will refer you. It will help you bump above the rest of the applications, right, that are coming in.
Yeah.
And even if that's not the right role, there might be another one that would be a fit.
Yeah.
But that referral will help a ton. So
and the other thing I want to say for people who maybe haven't built that network yet is that you can even reach out to somebody who has a similar background as you at the company that you're looking to apply for and say, hey, I see we both played water polo in high school, or we know this person in common. Would you be willing to have a 30-minute conversation with me around what it's like to work at your company? And then once they're a little bit warmer, then you can say, would you be willing to refer me? A lot of people are absolutely willing to have that conversation. And I don't want, there's the network effect of like, oh, I don't have the network. I don't have this person who I can talk to. Ask, find somebody and ask.
Mm. So that's the other piece that you've been underscoring here is this idea of finding connection, and not necessarily just in the literal sense, although that's important. If you can find somebody who works at the company and they can refer you, great. But finding the things you have in common, because ultimately, in addition to your experience, part of the assessment is, can we work together?
Yeah.
Can we build rapport? We don't have to come from the same exact backgrounds. We don't have to like all the same things, but can we work together? That's really what you're testing for. It sounds like
Yeah.
in that first part of the interview process, it's not just how well can you recite what you've done.
Right.
It's what would it be like for us to work together if we have to hop on a call every week or several times a week? How's that going to work? Are we going to be able to, build rapport, right?
Right.
Is that a fair kind of capture of,
Yeah,
what
that's
you mentioned?
fair. I think the old school way to that advice that we used to give was like, let's say you're stuck in an airport with somebody on a delayed flight with a coworker. Are you gonna want to go, to chat with them and go grab like a coffee or a glass of wine or something, or is it somebody who you don't? And
Mm.
I really also want to make the point that different backgrounds and different points of view and diversity in that is extremely important. And so you do have to balance, oh, hey, yeah, like we get along and we're chatting with like, oh, this person actually has a very different and distinct perspective, and they're going to help actually build out some of the areas of opportunity in my team. So I'll look at the team's profile and say, we have strength in storytelling. We don't have strength in pricing and packaging, for example. So I need to go out there. I need to hire somebody who is more of like a nuts and bolts product marketer versus maybe a brand marketer in order to round out my team. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're not necessarily looking for, hey, we need everybody to be the same, have the same exact school of thinking. In fact, the opposite is true. We want diversity of perspective. We want diversity of background and experiences. But we should still be able to work together, right? We should be able to work through those different perspectives.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to get the best work. And so a lot of what is happening in that initial part of the interview is that piece of it, right? How well can we engage and have a conversation with each other without it feeling overly scripted, and like you're just reciting a resume. So
Exactly.
So be prepared to have a conversation is kind of what I'm hearing there. And so let's say that part goes well. Is there any other advice you would have for that first interview, that first conversation they have with you around, what to do and maybe what not to do?
Yeah, definitely. So building rapport in an authentic way, very important. Articulation of the value that you've created in your current or previous roles, very important. Being able to not just talk about what you did, but the impact that it had, extremely important. Also, what I see a lot is it's really easy to determine seniority in a role within a 30-minute conversation. I'll have people who are coming in applying for a role that might be a little bit of a stretch for them. And I'll have people coming in that actually might be too senior for a role. And it's kind of like, at what altitude are you flying? When I ask a question, like maybe, how do you think about content marketing? What do you think is important there? There are so many different ways to begin to answer that question. Someone who's super senior is going to start with like, I have a story. When I was at Disney, I was in this room and there we were, and they start with a story and they start with a concept and they start with like not selling, but setting the stage. When I talk with someone who's maybe got 2 years of experience, they might say, the most important thing with content marketing is starting with the user. It's and you can see the difference in the way that they think about what this particular practice is and how they think about it. And flying at a high altitude isn't always necessarily the right altitude to fly at. It's like you need to find a balance between strategy and how you think about something. And then you need to be able to land the plane into, and then here are the tactics that I took in order to execute on that strategy, and here are the results that I now have.
Got it. So get a sense for at what altitude does this plane need to fly?
Yeah.
And if I haven't flown it at that altitude yet, at least be able to speak to what it takes to fly at that altitude, right? So maybe I haven't run content strategy, but I understand what it is, and I understand how to talk about what it might look like and how I might execute it, even if I don't have the when I was a Disney story to share, right?
Yeah.
And conversely, if you're looking for like, I need executional detail here, like how would you actually do it? Know how to pull down at that altitude as well and talk in specifics, right? And you mentioned impact. It's not just what you did or what you shipped. It's like what result came from that. And hopefully they're good results. They won't always be, and be able to speak to those as well, right? What did you learn from the ones that maybe didn't go the way that you were hoping they would?
Yeah. And really practicing and being able to smoothly speak through those times when things didn't go very well shows transparency and authenticity. Like those are kind of the questions that people hate the most. Like, what are your growth edges? Or what's a time that a project failed? And you're like, oh man, like how honest do I be? Like I've had some spectacular failures that were definitely my fault. So how do I like message around those particular things and say, oh, this is what I learned from it. Is this the right story to tell for this particular hiring manager? So really thinking through those really great growth edge stories is a good way to prepare for an interview.
Yeah. Chances are, I mean, in today's world where so many things are so discoverable, the things that didn't go so well are probably going to be found. And so to the extent that you can own it and talk about what you learned from it, with minimal spin, is probably not such a bad way to go, right? So let's say that you love this person's background, and the conversation's gone really well. There's a good combination of rapport, but also understanding which altitude they're flying at. What happens next? You give them a thumbs up. What happens next in the process?
Yeah. Generally when I'm in an interview and it goes really well, I tell the candidate that it went really well. I say, this was a great conversation. I would like to move you to the next round. I feel like that helps build a little bit of transparency and trust with me. And then they know where they stand, and it helps reduce some of the anxiety in the job hunt and the job process. It's hard to really want a job and not hear back from a recruiter for 5 days and be like, did I blow it? Did I not blow it? I don't know. So I tell the candidate, great conversation. I'm moving you to the next round. The people who you're talking with are probably going to be, Sarah, Jason, and so. Then the recruiter will reach out and they will schedule that next interview. So the thing that also I haven't done so well in the past, and I think people really should do, is lean on the recruiter as much as possible and ask as many questions as you can. Obviously ask for the name of the people who you're interviewing, but also ask them if they're willing to share this. What area are they going to be digging into? And then what do you think they care about? What do you think they're looking for? You can ask those questions, and the recruiter, if it's the company that's open and transparent, will probably tell you, oh, you're going to be speaking with Steve, and the thing that Steve really cares about is you ride one-wheelers at midnight. That's just a joke. But, Steve is looking at this particular area. He's looking at leadership. And so he's really going to be caring about, leadership aptitude and how you grow and scale high-performing teams. And so that gives you just a little bit of more information about how you should be framing the different conversations that you're about to have.
So leverage that. Yeah, use that recruiter to learn as much as you possibly can about who you're going to be interviewing with. And so how do you typically construct that? Let's call it a panel. I know it's called different things, different companies. Sometimes it's called an interview loop. In some cases, it's an interview panel. Some cases, an interview committee. Let's say it's what do you guys call it if you have a name for it?
Yeah. I think we probably call it a panel. So
Panel.
I assembled a panel, and I usually put about 4 different people on there. I put product, so for product marketing, product counterpart. Who are they going to be working with the most? I will put that person in there immediately. The other person who I put in is maybe a close counterpart on my team. So someone who they might be partnering with. I'm also going to put in someone who's basically doing this exact same job but for another product within the Atlassian portfolio. That's a really great benefit of working for a company that has 18 plus products. I can go find the content marketer at Jira Software. And I can say, will you be on my interview panel? You're the expert, and you're really going to be able to dig into the craft and the nuts and bolts that I might not even be able to do. And then in addition to those 3 key people, we have a values interviewer, somebody who asks about Atlassian values like play as a team or open company, no BS. And they try to ascertain cultural fit for the company. So after those 4 interviews, then we'll generally bring in like a leadership interview, someone, my boss usually, and say, hey, like I've got this one candidate, he's great, would love for you to meet with them and dig into this particular area around fit with Atlassian.
Gotcha. And so each of those individuals, you've handpicked these individuals to be on your panel. I think I heard this. They're looking for specific areas, right? They each have a focus area.
Yep.
Right. In some cases it's cultural ad, but in other cases it's other disciplines.
I've given them some questions as well where I would say, hey, you're going to be digging into how this person would be a counterpart for you on product. And so I want you to ask these 3 questions, and then of course bring your own questions to the table.
Got it. And then after that part and before the senior leader involvement, what happens then? What happens when the panel has all those interviews have finished?
Yeah. We have a debrief where we bring everybody together, and I've likely seen everybody's feedback. They enter it into a platform that we use. And then, so we don't influence each other. Generally, the recruiter will, count down, say, all right, 3, 2, 1, thumbs up or thumbs down. And this isn't allowed. Like it has to be a hire or a no hire. And we have a scale. There's a strong hire. That's a 4. Then there's a hire, which is a 3. There's a no hire, which is a 2. Then there's a strong no hire, which is a 1. And so a 4, like you don't get those that often. There's usually like 1 or 2. Well, I don't want to say usually. When you've done a good job, there's maybe a couple of 4s in the room, and there's a strong hire. But then there's a mix. So what happens is the hiring manager and myself will hear from each person on the interview panel, and they'll have about 5 minutes to make their case for why they were a hire or they were a no hire. I dug into this area, and this person answered these questions in this way. And here's my evaluation of how they answered the questions. And these are some things that were really strong. And these are some things that we feel like are red flags. And then I'll ask clarifying questions. The recruiter will ask clarifying questions, and we go around and we have everybody discuss how the candidate did in their interview.
And so that's interesting. So people are submitting their feedback. Everybody's coming together. As a candidate, you probably want to think about, how do I provide enough unique content in each of those conversations so that when that group gets together, they have a lot to talk about, right? I've seen some cases where we all get together and everybody had, despite different focus areas, it's like, oh, they shared this example with me. Oh yeah, they shared that same example with me. Oh yeah, that's the one I heard too. Oh yeah, and you get a much more limited perspective of what the candidate can do versus, oh, they shared this example. Wow, I didn't hear that. They told me a completely different one that was about this. And it's like, oh, yeah, and I heard something even different. Um, so as a candidate, think about how do I give each of these interviewers something unique that I haven't already said to the others, right? And so think through your whole quiver of content. You've probably done more than you realize, and don't kind of repeat the same thing to every single interviewer. Is that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I've been in a lot of debriefs where someone will say, I don't feel confident about their experience of doing XYZ 1, 2, 3. And
Mm,
somebody else says, I actually dug into that and they gave me a really great
mm,
example of when they
awesome.
delivered that.
Mm,
So people on the panel will give, the I don't want to say like stick up for the candidate, but they will try to give the examples that they can that the candidate gave them to kind of say, yeah, this is why I'm defending my position of why I think it's a strong hire because they actually were able to talk through this particular example really well.
mm. And so when you're interviewing, you're not just trying to convince the hiring manager. You're trying to convince everybody on that panel. Take every single one of those interviews just as seriously, if not more seriously, than you do the hiring manager, right? 'Cause you're going to take a lot of signal from what you hear from your panel, right? There's a reason you've set that time up and asked those people to carve out time for this. It's a really important contributor to your decision, right?
Yeah. I mean, I I've hired people where like maybe one or two were a no to maybe. I've never hired somebody who every single person was like, nope, nope, nope. And the more no's, the less likely I am to hire somebody, obviously.
Yeah, which is it's probably a good thing for the candidate if things are not going that well or
Yeah.
going that poorly. It's probably not going to be a good fit for them as well, right? So the process works. Um, let's see. All right, so we're kind of coming near the end here. Any general advice? So you've already talked about, hey, see if you can find a referral because that's going to set you apart. Anything else? Any other advice you would have for look? Here's how to really set yourself apart in a good way, and any other kind of parting feedback on what not to do, what things might set you apart in a not so good way.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I'm trying to think of really unique advice.
Is there an example of a candidate who like, wow, like they killed it in this process, and here's the thing they did that was so special.
Yeah. I'm one of the people who likes a little bit of personality
Mm,
in a LinkedIn profile or in a resume. And
mm,
so even just a small wink or a small nod to this is who I am as a person and this gives me a little
mm,
bit of a window into who you are is something that I look for. If
mm,
it's just, just a straight resume that has your experience and everything you've done, cool. Yeah, I'm going to consider you. And honestly, a little bit of personality isn't going to make up for the fact that you don't have the experience that I'm looking
yeah,
for. Um, but showing me a little bit of who you are is something that can help set you apart a little bit more than the hundreds of thousands of resumes that I see every day. That's a
gotcha.
huge exaggeration. Hundreds of thousands of resumes I see every day. Hundreds of thousands of resumes that I've probably seen in my lifetime.
Oh, lifetime. Yeah, you've seen a lot, and you will see more. And if someone wants you to see their resume, what is the best way for them to do that? If someone wants to follow you, if they want to come work for you, um, where should they go? What should they do?
LinkedIn.com/Laurel Hodge. Come and find me.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Laurel, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I think there are so many pearls here. I hope people really follow this advice because you've shared some things that I think would really help them set themselves apart in a pretty competitive market. So thanks so much.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thanks for setting this up, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Laurel. Hey, so thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful. If it was, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It won't cost you anything, but it does help the channel. And then when you see that little bell button pop up, hit that. And this way you'll get notified when we post more tips from real hiring managers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.